Inside a busy bank office, I heard my sister say, "Just transfer the money. My brother doesn't need to know." The manager paused while checking the signature on the document. My sister smirked confidently, thinking the money was already hers. Then the manager frowned and said, "Ma'am, this signature doesn't match." Everyone in the room turned toward me. My name is Lucas Bennett. I'm 34 years old. I work as a regional warehouse supervisor, which means I manage inventory, coordinate shipments, and solve problems that nobody else wants to deal with before 7 in the morning. It's steady work. It pays the bills. It's never once impressed anyone at a family dinner. My sister Amanda has the better job, the nicer house, and the kind of composed confidence that makes people assume she's the responsible one before she's said a single word. Growing up, she was the one my parents described to their friends, the one with the plan, and I was the other one, the quiet one, the one who showed up. When our father's health started declining, Amanda showed up occasionally. I showed up constantly. Hospital visits, prescription pickups, the 3 in the morning calls when his blood pressure spiked and he was scared. I rearranged my shifts. I learned which nurses to ask for and which medications caused him trouble. I paid attention because nobody else was paying attention, and because he was my father and that's what you do. After he passed, the warmth in the family disappeared fast. What replaced it was an obsession with what he'd left behind. Amanda began moving like she was already in charge. Account questions, property discussions, decisions made in conversations I wasn't included in. She acted like control of everything was a formality waiting to be confirmed. I wasn't rich or glamorous. But I had something they didn't expect, patience and attention to detail, and that quiet habit was about to change everything. If you're the sibling who handled the hard parts while someone else handled the appearances, you already know this story from the inside. You know what it feels like to sacrifice years of your life for someone you love, and then watch another person walk in and claim the credit. Have you ever watched someone take credit for things you sacrificed for? If that question lands somewhere real for you, subscribe to this channel and drop your experience in the comments. You're not alone in this, and I want to hear what you've been through. Click like or hype before we go further because this story is just getting started. So it's a Thursday afternoon, right? I'm wrapping up a shift report at work when my phone rings. Lady from the bank, real polite, real careful with her words, asking if I could come in about my dad's account. Said it was important that I be there in person. Wouldn't tell me anything else over the phone. I drove straight there after my shift, didn't even change out of my work clothes. Walked into the branch manager's office, and y'all, Amanda was already sitting there. Folder in her lap, that look on her face like she'd shown up early on purpose and was real proud of it. She saw me walk in, didn't say a word, just watched me sit down in the other chair like she was waiting for a show to start. The manager, cool, professional guy in his 40s named Mr. Osai, explained that Amanda had come in to push through an authorization transfer on my dad's account. We're talking $270,000. Before I could even open my mouth, Amanda jumped in. Said my dad had told her personally what he wanted done with the money. That he trusted her to handle it the right way. That she had paperwork backing up her authority to make it happen. Then she glanced over at me for like half a second and goes, and she said this to Mr. Osai, not to me like I wasn't literally sitting right there. He never really understood finances anyway. Y'all, I had to just sit with that one, Mr. Osai picked up the authorization document Amanda had slid across his desk. I looked at it from where I was sitting, didn't touch it, just looked. Something felt off about it. The formatting, the layout. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what, but something wasn't sitting right with me. Meanwhile, Amanda had leaned back in her chair like she'd already won. You know that move when somebody's so sure of themselves they start acting like the whole thing is just a formality? That was her energy in that room. Mr. Osai pulled up my dad's file on his computer and started going back and forth. Document, screen, real slow and deliberate. That office was so quiet I could literally hear the AC running through the vent up by the door. Then he stopped. He picked up the document again, held it a little closer, looked at the screen. Then back at the paper, and he said real carefully, "This signature isn't consistent with your father's previous documents on file." Oh, the energy in that room shifted immediately. I felt it before anybody said a word. Amanda's whole composure, that cool, collected thing she had going, started cracking just a little. You could see it around her eyes. A tiny shift in how she was sitting. "There may be a discrepancy in the records," she said, smooth as ever. "These things happen with older documents, Mr. Osai put the paper down and said he'd need to escalate the review before anything could move forward. I sat there quietly and didn't say a word, but my brain was already going 100 miles an hour. Here's the thing though, by the weekend, Amanda had already called every relative who might take her side before I'd had a single chance to tell my version of anything. She told my aunt I was blocking our dad's last wishes out of pure spite. She told 2 of my cousins that I'd always been jealous of her and was using the estate stuff to get back at her. She spun the whole bank meeting like I was the one who caused the problem, like I somehow made up the signature issue myself. And just like that, my phone started blowing up. An uncle I actually respect called me asking me to stop making things difficult. A cousin I hadn't talked to in 2 years texted me saying the family didn't need this drama right now. The whole narrative was already out there, already believed, and I hadn't said a single word to anybody yet. Then at a family dinner that week, Amanda straight up announces, loud enough for the whole table to hear, that I was only upset because I thought I was getting everything for myself. A few people nodded along, nobody pushed back. I just sat there, ate my food, and watched how the whole room was playing out. Then she looks right at me with everyone listening and tells me she's already talked to a lawyer. That if I tried to challenge her authority over the estate, it would cost me way more than it was worth. Basically told me to think real hard about whether I wanted to keep going down this road. I looked right back at her across that table and said, "I'm not on a road, I'm just waiting for the truth." She laughed it off and moved on like I hadn't said anything. But here's what I kept coming back to: that document at the bank. The formatting was just slightly wrong. The font on the signature line didn't quite match the rest of the text. Little stuff. The kind of thing most people would never even notice. But when you've spent years handling someone's paperwork, when you know exactly what their documents are supposed to look like, those little things jump out at you. So I went home that night and pulled out the folder I'd been keeping for the past 3 years. See, while my dad was sick, I handled everything. His bills, his insurance, his medical paperwork, all of it. I got real meticulous about it because his memory wasn't always reliable anymore. He'd forget what he'd signed or when. So I kept copies of literally everything. Statements, emails, account alerts, authorization requests. I had a whole system going, dated folders on my laptop, a physical binder on my shelf. Nothing fancy, just organized. And when Amanda's whole vibe started feeling off to me, I went back through all of it. What I found took me 2 solid evenings to piece together. There were login attempts on my dad's online banking account, from a device he didn't even own, starting about 6 weeks before he passed. There were 2 requests for account info sent to an email address I didn't recognize, and then there was this voicemail. My dad had accidentally forwarded it to me about 8 weeks before he died, all confused about what it meant. It was Amanda's voice. "Calm, quick, casual, Dad, just sign the form I sent and leave it on the counter. I'll grab it when I'm by. It's just paperwork, nothing complicated." He had never once mentioned signing anything to me, and I was with him for most of that time. What Amanda did not know, what she never even considered, was that I had kept copies of all of it. Every message, every login alert, every bank notification. And that voicemail that my dad had accidentally sent to me instead of just saving it for himself. The more I dug through everything, the clearer it got. This wasn't just unfair. This was potentially fraud. I didn't make a move right away though. I took my time, got everything organized into one clean file, dated, labeled, tight, and I waited for the right moment. Now, Mr. Reynolds had been our family's attorney for over 20 years. He drafted my dad's original estate documents, updated them twice. Was personally present at 2 of the 3 meetings where my dad made decisions about his affairs. I was at all 3 of those meetings. Amanda, she wasn't at a single one when I called Mr. Reynolds and walked him through what went down at the bank. He went quiet for a good long moment. Then he said, "Come in." I brought the whole folder. He spent 40 minutes going through every single piece of it. No rushing, no skimming. He read the bank alerts, listened to the voicemail right off my phone, went through the account activity timeline line by line. Then he put Amanda's authorization document right next to the signature pages from my dad's actual legal file. He looked up at me and said, "This authorization was not prepared by my office. And this signature was not produced at the same time as the document it appears on." He broke it down for me. Someone had digitally lifted my dad's signature from an older document and dropped it onto new paperwork. It was clean enough to slide past a quick look, but it would absolutely fall apart under any kind of real forensic examination. And the whole time this was going on, Amanda was out here telling relatives the estate dispute was basically already settled in her favor, talking about that account like the money was already hers. She figured I had no legal ground to stand on, no real documentation, no plan. She was banking literally on me getting worn down and giving up. Mr. Reynolds told me to stay cool and just let the formal review process do its thing. She's going to walk into that office thinking she's about to close the deal, he said. Let her. The meeting at Mr. Reynolds' office was set for a Tuesday morning. Amanda showed up 10 minutes early, which honestly told me everything I needed to know about how sure of herself she was. She brought backup too, my aunt and one of my cousins, probably figuring that having family there would add some kind of weight to her side. They lined up along the wall like they were there to witness a coronation. Mr. Reynolds welcomed everyone, opened the file on the table, and got to work. That man moves like he always does, no drama, no wasted words, just straight to business. He walked through the authorization document Amanda had submitted to the bank. Laid it right next to the signature pages from my dad's actual estate file. And he explained clearly, calmly, no theatrics, that the signature analysis showed it had been copied digitally from an earlier document, not signed on its own. Then he put my records on the table. The unauthorized login attempts, the account information requests, the email trail, the voicemail, y'all, that room got so quiet. The kind of quiet where you start noticing stuff you normally tune out, the sound of Mr. Reynolds setting his pen down, the low hum of the heat running, somebody shifting in their chair against the wall. Amanda said the records were being misread. That there were perfectly innocent explanations. Her voice was still controlled, but it had gone thin like the confidence had leaked right out of it. I spoke up once. I said I didn't come there to punish anybody. I came because my dad spent the last years of his life trusting the people around him, and I was not about to let that trust get used against him after he was gone. Mr. Reynolds laid it out straight. Submitting a falsified authorization to a bank in order to move funds, that's fraud. If Amanda chose to push the transfer forward, the matter would need to be reported to the bank and potentially to the authorities. My aunt stopped nodding. The cousins stared at the folder and didn't say a word. Amanda went completely still. That meeting ended with nothing for Amanda because there was nothing left to give her. The whole story she'd built had just collapsed under its own weight. The bank kept the account frozen while everything went through the proper legal process. When my dad's actual will was reviewed in full, it said exactly what he had always meant for it to say. The remaining balance was to be split equally between both of his kids, not handed to one. Split between two, Amanda didn't fight it. I think sitting in that office, she finally understood that every move she could make from there only made things worse for her. Some family members came back around eventually. Not all of them, and it didn't happen overnight, but some. My aunt actually called me a week later and told me she was sorry she hadn't come to me directly before she made up her mind. I genuinely appreciated that. It's not easy to make that kind of call. I chose not to go after Amanda any further. That was a real, deliberate decision, not because I was weak or scared, but because I refused to let that conflict become the organizing principle of the rest of my life. My dad was gone. The money was going where he always intended it to go. That was enough for me. What I walked away with wasn't revenge, it was peace. That specific, quiet kind of peace that comes from knowing you protected somebody who couldn't protect themselves anymore. That all those years of showing up, paying attention and keeping records, they mattered in the most real, concrete way possible. People like Amanda, they count on the quiet ones to eventually check out. They count on you being patient and figure that means you're passive. They think that because you're not the loudest person in the room, you must not be watching. They had me completely wrong. They thought I was the easiest one to overlook. Turns out I was the hardest one to fool. And listen, if somebody in your family has ever tried to pull something like this with money, an inheritance, or your parents' trust, I need you to hear me. What happened to you was real. And it was wrong. Financial betrayal inside families happens way more than anybody talks about. And a lot of people stay quiet about it because they don't want to look greedy or cause drama. You are not greedy for protecting what was meant to be protected. You are not difficult for demanding that the truth be the truth. Drop your story in the comments. If somebody close to you has ever tried to take advantage of you financially, tell me what happened. These conversations matter. They help people feel less alone in something that can feel really isolating. Subscribe to this community and hit hype to help this story reach somebody who needs it right now. And if any part of this felt familiar to you, like the video, leave your thoughts below. Every comment, every share, every hype puts this story in front of someone who's going through it right now and needs to know they're not the only one. Tell me where you're watching from, and for real, thank you for being here.